Yeah, it's a great question. I want to just add one quick thing there to the burning desire because,
Yeah.
a lot of times people think a burning desire means that I want things or that I want for the sake of wanting.
It's a great caveat. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not that. I know that I am built to want, to grow, to build, right? And I'm kind of leaning into your question here. I know that I'm a builder. The identity that I have is a builder. So I have no shame in wanting more. Now, I understand that there are people who have maybe a similar desire that have used that for evil, but guess what? That's the world. We're broken people and there are evil people out there.
Welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health. Welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I'm a little bit giddy. I get to sit down with my friend, business partner, all around great human, Chaz Wolfe, serial entrepreneur. Chaz, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, man, it's an absolute pleasure. I was beginning to wonder if I was ever going to get an invite. You've been just crushing this show and having all these amazing guests, and I was having a little FOMO.
Yeah, well, I was just waiting for the right time, man. Yeah. I'm really excited about this. Where are you being in from?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Awesome.
The Midwest.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we've got some history, and we've been building together for a little while now. I'm curious, I want to start back in the day and for the listeners, build out this context for what brings you here today. So start off, if you wouldn't mind, telling us where you grew up and what was Chaz like in middle school. And
yeah, well, I'll drop a big old hammer on you and the audience right away here. I won't explain any of it though, so you'll have to find me later to explain it. But Chaz in middle school was not Chaz Wolfe. I didn't know my dad at that time. I thought somebody else was my dad, who I never even called dad. He was in and out of my life, in and out of prison. And so when I was 24, I met my actual dad. He didn't even know I existed, and I didn't know he was my dad. So that's when I became Wolfe. Before that, I was a totally different identity. We don't talk about that guy. Not that he was a bad guy, but I'm just not him anymore. So anyway, the Chaz back then was a young guy. Believe it or not, I still liked making my hair look nice. I remember being 12, 13, and if you remember the blonde tips, I was totally rocking the blonde tips and the earrings, and I was a smart kid, not very good at school, but smart and resourceful. Let's just say it that way. That's how I made it through school, and I just couldn't wait to make money. That was me in middle school, high school, really any sort of me starting at the age of basically 10.
You've always had the money drive.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Single mom family, right? Like, we didn't have a whole bunch. My mom worked a ton, and so I couldn't be more grateful from a perspective of diligence and hard work and an example, right? But I mean, all my friends got brand new cars. I went to a pretty nice high school. It was public school, but pretty nice high school, and I was just trying to fill up my gas tank with my 93 Ford Explorer that caught on fire. Yeah. It was just a different childhood than many of my friends.
Yeah. Fascinating. You brought up identity, and obviously if you're switching a name and going that level of identity, that's a significant shift. And I'm curious, you're one of the few folks I know that's been studying personal development or self-mastery for, I started my journey in this realm and really going deep 15, 20 years ago. You started at a much younger age than I did. What really triggered this? Was it the want of more material and money, or was there a mentor, or what was the catalyst?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's never really been about the money. Obviously I make a lot of money now, and some people would never know. We just moved into a beautiful home that I had built, but before last year, you probably never even guess. I'm a pretty good squirreler and purchaser of assets that nobody knows about, But to answer your question, when I was 18 years old, believe it or not, this is going to sound funny to some folks. I was approached by the Amway multi-level marketing opportunity.
Yeah.
And the young, ambitious 18-year-old Chaz had already been working full time. I had already made good money. I was a retail manager at Foot Locker. I started that when I was, working full time basically at 16, right before I turned 17. And so it wasn't really about the money, because I could, at 18, I could buy whatever. I had no responsibilities. I had no bills. I could buy whatever I wanted. But this idea of freedom and this idea of going to the next level of myself or the future me was introduced through some of these conferences and stuff that, these business teams put on inside of the multi-level marketing, Amway, or I'm sure plenty of the other ones do. Yep. And so, I just went hard for 3 years. I did everything that I was asked to do. And I drove thousands of miles. I pushed my body to the to the end of physically what it means to be not capable any longer physically to be awake. And I pushed all the limits, and that just sparked everything that was already in me of this this fire for more, this greater desire, success, call it, you could fill in the gap on a bunch of titles, but I wanted more, man. And that was just the fountain that gave me a little taste. I wasn't very successful in that business. We had some success, but I wasn't, speaking on stages or anything. But what it did is it showed me what life could potentially be like if a business or if wealth existed. And so again, for me, it wasn't necessarily about what the wealth could buy. It was about the freedom, or about what the legacy I could leave for my family, really.
And that started that early.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let me backtrack. That was 18, right? 18, 19, 20 is when I was in that business, and made a smidge of 21. I got married at 21, though, to my high school sweetheart. We started dating when I was 18. She was 17. And that summer, so basically we went to my senior prom, and then that summer she went to Montana. They always went to Montana for the summer. And I knew that summer that I was going to marry her. And she's 17, a junior in high school. And so that Christmas, I purchased a ring. Went over to the Zales over there in the mall. Only thing that an 18-year-old kid can do. Spent $1,000, a little less than $1,000, and I bought her this beautiful ring. And for me, I knew exactly what it meant. It was a precursor to what I knew I was going to do at some point. Now I couldn't tell her that or her parents, because that was too much at that point. But to the deeper question there that you were asking, was I that decisive? Did I really know that at that age? Yes. I knew exactly what I wanted. Now, I didn't know what our life would look like. I didn't know that we would have 4 beautiful children and an incredible marriage, but I knew she was the one for sure. And so when I got into the Amway business, when I looked at freedom, when I looked at success, when I looked at wealth, when I looked at legacy, yes, bite me a big old bite of that off,
What I find amazing about this, and I've known your certainty and the decisiveness that you bring to life, and it's inspiring, man. It moves me, it motivates me. As I mature, I get more and more decisive in my life. And I think what I love about your story is how early on you just owned this component. And so it begs the question, nature versus nurture. Is this coming out of, a single mom livelihood and almost needing to adopt this decisiveness because it was almost survival on some level?
Right.
And I guess that's kind of the question from your perspective, nature or nurture?
This is an interesting question that you would even bring this up, because you and I haven't had this conversation yet. But so I mentioned a few minutes ago that I met my dad at 24. And, again, the funny part about the story is that we look alike, like a lot alike. And he owns multiple businesses and cows and farm ground, and he drives from one veterinarian client to the other, or one pasture to the next, thinking about, what can I do more? What can I do next? And so from that angle, we're very much alike, although we're very different in many ways. We're not the same human at all. If he were here on the show with you, he'd tell you that I'm much more of a risk taker. And maybe that comes from the nurture side of it, whereas like, look, it was just survival. Like we just figure it out. That's what that was.
Yeah.
And so from a medical perspective, Dr. Wolfe, my father, would have, he's a veterinarian. And so he would have said 75% environment, 25% DNA. He's like, and he's literally said to me word for word, after meeting you, it's gotta be the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I have no idea, because I had a phenomenal upbringing. Now you think, well, geez, a single mom, struggling on bills, money, stuff like that. I mean, we always had food. That's what I was trying to say there. But some people might say, like, what do you mean you had an incredible upbringing? Well, she's an incredible woman. Like, holy moly. What are the life lessons that I learned from that situation, and being more than I was required to be as a son? You're not required to lead or to provide financially for the family. Like, these are not son descriptions. These are father descriptions. And so I was much more of a partner than I was ever meant to be. But those things have made me who I am, coupled with, the DNA that I share with Dr. Wolfe. It's created a little bit of a monster, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you bring full force, and I truly do appreciate and love it, man. So, in our Kooler Lifestyle conversations, these have been forming into 3 buckets, which I shared with you: better business, living longer, and better community connections. I want to keep on this thread of certainty and being decisive, because this is a component of better business. I think there's a lot of business owners out there that, I can definitely relate to. And as I've been going through this journey, I've been working on that decision making. I've been working on the certainty, because there's times where I'll make a decision and I've got to own it, but it might be wrong.
Right.
And it is the only way.
Yeah.
It's the only way I'm going to be able to build a bigger entity and build wealth and put this legacy together. So I'm teeing up the question, and it's kind of an open-ended question, Chaz, like, around certainty, around making decisions. What have you gleaned out of books, mentors, your studies that have helped even gain more certainty and more of the decisiveness? What's some applicable advice that listeners can use today?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to go in reverse order. So what you're talking about as decisiveness is what brings us to where we are, right? So we were just on a call here recently where I was talking about, we are where we are today based on the decisions that we've made, period. Like, there is no more of the story. It's a hard period. And I always enunciate the period, because we as humans make so many excuses, so many reasons that we cover up, and we give ourselves grace or latitude, whatever nice words you want to use. It's an excuse. And I do it myself. So I'm not like harping on anybody that's listening. The reality of it is that you are where you are based on the decisions that you've made, period. It's not based on your environment. It's not based on other people. It's not based on money that you have or don't have. It's not based on your education. It's not. It's based on the decisions that you've made, okay? Because here I am, the son of a single mom who had no money. I have no college education. I slept through high school, okay? I probably should have just been a dropout of that too. And I built multiple businesses in my 20s. I become a millionaire when I'm 29, a multimillionaire in my 30s, and I'm helping other business owners do the same. What qualifies me? I don't know, other than here I am, right? So the decisions that we've made, right? Okay, so let's reverse engineer that back. Well, what helps us make good decisions? Well, the way that we think. Okay, so that's really your bigger question here is what have I done? What do we need to do in order to be able to think differently? And we are wired by our environment, our family, like you talked about a little bit ago. We're wired by fear. We're wired by survival. All of these things are naturally how we make decisions. And through books and through mentors and coaches and even groups like we're a part of, I have found value in being able to hear someone else say something or show me what they've done based on their experience and me go, huh, interesting. I don't know if I would have thought about that. Or, well, I didn't know that that was possible. Or I moved my family to South Florida for a year. And, that's a different environment. There's so much money in South Florida. I mean, I would see Rolls Royce regularly. The Honda, the Honda that everybody drives around Kansas City here. Well, it's a Mercedes G-Wagon down there, right? Like everybody has one. Everybody has one. Well, that's a $250,000 vehicle, and they all live in a $5 million, $10 million condo right there on the beach. All of them, and there's tons of them. People everywhere. It's crazy. There's so much money. So putting ourselves in situations by reading books or going to conferences, just like I told you about back in the Amway, that's what Amway did for me, is it expounded the way that I think, or it gave me a new perspective, a new belief system, right? So the way that I think needs to be rewired so that I can believe the things that are maybe possible for me. That then helps me make good decisions. And then right after decisions is action, right? I can make decisions all day long, but if I don't take any action, then there's no result. So I'm not sure if that's an exact formula or not, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. So for the listener, business owner that's listening and being like, okay, so I need to change the way I think.
Yeah.
Where do we go?
Hey everybody, this is Luke from Kooler Garage Doors. Just want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Sommar Garage Door Openers. In our opinion, Sommars are the highest quality product on the market today. We recommend them for all of our residential garage door installs because of the variety of features they include, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and safety features such as a fixed chain, which moves along a secure rail to ensure your garage door opens quietly and safely. Click on the link in the description to learn more about Sommar Garage Door Openers.
Well, a pretty easy on-ramp to that is Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, it's the number one success principle book. It's, in my opinion, all the rest of them were written in some sort of a fashion based on that book.
Right.
So I've read that book every single year for the last decade, probably, maybe a little less than, but I've also read it multiple times some of those years. I've read it 4 times this year already. So it's like, okay, well, first off, what does the book offer? And then why do I keep reading it? Number one, the book offers 13 success principles that are literally foundation to everything. And it also offers 30 reasons why you're going to fail. So if I know what makes me successful and what's potentially going to hold me back, I just follow the script. Sounds pretty simple, but what's easy to do is also easy not to do. So I just read the book and I do what it says. Pretty straightforward. What I get out of it multiple times every single year is I am ideally changing and growing. And so my perspective should be changing and growing. And the way that I think should be changing and growing based on not only what I'm learning in the book, but then also how I'm running my businesses or how I'm getting around other people like Matthew Kuehlhorn who challenge me or make me think in a different way. So then when I go back to the 13 success principles and when I go back to the 30 reasons for failure, I go, oh, I think about this differently now. Wow, I need to level up again, right? Pretty easy on-ramp.
Yes. What I love about that book is the burning desire. And to me, that speaks to a compelling future. And if I'm archetyping my compelling future and I get it strong enough, that's going to fuel the desire and pull me forward so I don't have to push and prod myself, right?
That's right.
What are you waking up for? What are you building for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to just add one quick thing there to the burning desire because a lot of times people think a burning desire means that I want things or that I want for the sake of wanting.
It's a great caveat. Yeah.
So it's not that. I know that I am built to want, to grow, to build, right? And I'm kind of leaning into your question here. I know that I'm a builder. The identity that I have is a builder. So I have no shame in wanting more. Now, I understand that there are people who have maybe a similar desire that have used that for evil, but guess what? That's the world. We're broken people, and there are evil people out there. But you can't categorize money or the desire for more or this thing that needs to be inside of you so hot and just on the inside and run away from it, because the people or the impact, whether it's people or your community or in case my family, they're not going to get the benefit of all that you're meant to be. It's not just you. It's not just the things that you can buy. It's the impact. So I'm going to circle all this up in the answer. I know that I'm a builder for two things. Number one is my family. I am building a legacy. I say in my purpose statement every single morning that I'm building the Wolfe legacy. 3 generations at once. I'm building 3 generations. Those 3 generations don't even exist at the current moment, but I'm building them. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Well, I want to perpetuate wealth, not just in money form, but in resources, all resources, including the way that we think. The Wolfe family from me down will do it different. Okay. Now into the generations, I know that possibly it's going to get lost. And so I have a duty to be with my children, to be with my grandchildren, and God willing, my great-grandchildren, to be able to get into the nitty-gritty with them and build legacy so that somewhere in that line, someone else is going to think like me and carry the mantle onto the next 3 generations. Number 2, I'm building business disciples. I know that I am absolutely called to pour out to other business owners. Currently, I do that in many formats, through consulting, through a roundtable, peer-to-peer mastermind group, through podcasts like this, through my own podcast called Gathering the Kings. Like, I know that I'm designed to connect intentionally with other business owners at a high level and call them into more. So let's go.
Let's go, man. Let's go, man. It's so good. I imagine, what if other business owners ran with that kind of fuel and that kind of purpose and definiteness, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a real duty for business owners to develop the strongest business possible, because that does build strength in community.
Absolutely.
And I love the caveat that you put in there. It's not about the things.
Yeah.
It's this inside game that affects the outside game and
right.
creates these ripples that ultimately makes it a better place for everybody to express and be who they are.
Yeah. Exactly. And as I define it in my mastermind group called Gathering the Kings, that being a king is about holding weight, right? Like, think about an old time king. Like, the crown wasn't just like this little frou-frou thing. It was like gold and heavy, and you put it on your head, like super uncomfortable, but you wore it because that's what a king does. Now, okay, that's on the outside. What does a king do inside of the kingdom? He's carrying the weight of the people, right? His family, of course, the ecosystem or the economics of the kingdom. But then there's a heart level. There's people there, And so, yes, it's my family and the legacy that I just talked about. But what about the impact of the team members that work with me or for me? What about you? What about other business owners listening right now? What about your family? Like, I know your wife, Nell, right? I'm getting to know your family better. It's my duty that in my interactions with your family, that they're better when they leave my presence. Like, that's what self-mastery is. It's not just me becoming the best version of me. It's me becoming the best version of me so that it can help others, so it pours out. And that's the difference between a warrior and a king, right? So the warrior's selfish. The warrior's in warrior mode, like always fighting and like trying to survive and like win the battle. That's not what kingship is. Yeah. Kingship is my eyes are on everybody else. Everybody else is taken care of, and then I eat.
Yes. Yeah, I call that win-win-winning.
I love it.
And there is a point in time in every person's life, this is for men and women, there's an immature version of the masculine, feminine. I look at that as what you're referencing as the warrior, the take. We're in it for the take, right?
That's right.
And then we grow to a point, hopefully, to where we can go beyond that. And it is about the give. That's the mature masculine, the mature feminine, the king, the queen, where we are going, and it's the leaders eat last component.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody else is set. Build that.
Yeah. If you don't live like that, then it's because you haven't first taken care of yourself. So I again, we linking it back to self-mastery. a lot of times business owners are spinning. Look, there's days where I'm spinning too, so I'm not speaking out of turn here. It's not like you ever get to a place where everything's just smooth all the time. But what I'm saying is that you can't help others because you haven't first helped yourself, right? Like you get on the airplane and what do they tell you? The thing drops down and you're supposed to put everyone else's mask on first? No, you put your mask on and then everyone else. And so that's what self-mastery is. Like you have to be diligent and like hungry about, I have to level up me. And that could look like all the different things. You said earlier, books. We talked about mentors. I know you've got some coaches. Of course, we've both paid for experiences, events, and groups and conferences. And like, there's just so many ways, but like, I just need to eat it all. I need to fill my plate and I have to grow because I have people counting on me.
Yeah. I love the perspective. And I would imagine some listeners would relate to this. And this is me being vulnerable, because in order to build oneself up, there's got to be the self-value component.
That's right.
Right. We have to be worthy of building it up. We have to have this belief anchored that we're worthy of quote unquote success, however we define it. Right.
That's right.
And so, for the folks that are listening that, maybe running a business or maybe on the fence, thinking about running a business, I'm going to say right now, like, yeah, you're worth it. I know that without a doubt. Like there's a spiritual game in all of this. And if we're waking up each day, give thanks and go to action, go take the hill, because that expression is completely worth it. And we're waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
You
and other people.
Yeah.
Other people are waiting for you. Your family is waiting for you.
Other people are waiting for you. Yes.
Your community, the schools, your church. Like, bro, there's no time to wait.
Yes. Yes. There is no time to wait. I mean, we could look across the board and get into the weeds on this one, but I think we'll go high level and just say, we need leaders.
Yeah.
We need people to own their lives and show up and play full out.
Yep.
And be decisive and learn from the mistakes and move on and iterate. And that's what makes it go.
Yeah. You said it earlier that, being decisive isn't necessarily making perfect decisions all the time. Obviously, we want to master decision-making, which helps us make less and less bad choices. But not making a choice or staying on the fence of opening a business, or even if in your own business or even in your own family or in your job, whatever the situation is that you're in right now as a listener, not making a decision isn't helping you. It's an open loop is what we call it. And too many open loops keep you in like stillness, and a body in motion stays in motion, and the same goes for stillness. And so it's like, I can't win if I'm not moving. And so I would much rather be decisive and be wrong and learn, okay, well, shouldn't do it that way next time. But cause guess what? I learned that I shouldn't do it that way. I've now eliminated, and I can go try this way. Right. But if I'd never try, or if I never do, or if I'm too busy overthinking, then I haven't at least got rid of this option. It's still an option. It's still an open loop. I'm trying to eliminate and go to the ones that work. Sometimes I pick them right the first time. Sometimes I don't.
Yes. Okay. That opened up one more question before I got to the tail end of this recorded conversation, but let's dive in. I want a little nuts and bolts. So for the listeners that, are making decisions, do you have a system that helps you prioritize? So in any business, there's, a funnel full of quote unquote problems, issues, opportunities that we can address. How do we bring this down into an actionable chunk,
right,
versus being overwhelmed?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so the big funnel that you can overlay over your business and your life is, does this thing, whatever the decision is associated to, help me get what I want? Right. So, okay, well, what does that mean? I have to first determine what do I want, which goes back to the burning desire and definiteness, which come from Think and Grow Rich. Okay. So if I first defined that I'm trying to X and I'm clear on it and I've got a burning desire for it. Okay. The decision comes across my desk. Does that help me get it? No, then I don't do it. No questions. I just don't do it. That could be things that I'm eating or not eating, activities that I'm partaking in, or business decisions, like all of life, who I marry, right? Like all of these very, very either subtle or important decisions all add up to this where I am today. And so is it based on, is it going to get me where I want to go? Okay. In a business, you can be a little bit more maybe like strategic and go, okay, well, take that same format of, does it help me get what I want? You can predetermine what you want and then put those into targets, right? Like actual measurable targets. That could be revenue associated. That could be headcount associated. That could be number of homes, right? Like you do garage doors. Okay, cool. Like how many homes or how many families do you want to impact this year? Like all of that's super measurable, and it can be broken down into quarters, months, weeks, daily actions, down to how many phone calls do we need to make, or how much marketing dollars do we need to spend this month in order to generate the certain amount of phone calls so that we can X, Y, Z. Like all of it can be broken down all the way down to the daily action, or even habit, right? Even one step, underneath the action is the habit. We just keep going and going.
Yeah. Can keep going and going. Nitty gritty.
You said we were almost done with the recording, so I'm gonna.
Well, I want to open up the conversation around masterminds, because you run Gathering the Kings, which I'm a part of. There's some amazing humans in that group.
That's right.
The way you've brought in people is just ridiculous, Chaz. And it's certainly spurred me, but masterminds in general, again, it's extracting from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. Talk to me a little bit about it. Share with our listeners what Gathering the Kings is and why does it bring value?
Yeah, so Gathering the Kings exists to create intentional connection points for entrepreneurs so that they can learn leverage. Leverage is the most important thing in business, but really life, specifically in these three areas: leveraging time, leveraging resources, and leveraging key relationships. And so we talk about these things inside of these intentional connection points. But going back to the book, Think and Grow Rich, the value of minds coming together, even on a podcast, it doesn't have to be in a paid format, right? Business owners pay me to get into an environment, to an intentional connection points that I create. Okay, well, cool. They're paying for the opportunity to be in a room with other high performers, and I've curated an environment. Okay, that's valuable. Even listening to a show like this can still have the same general effect as what a mastermind can do, because it's still two minds coming together, and it's an agitation of thought, right? You can only think one way linearly by yourself. And yes, you have some new ideas and maybe some hopes and desires, but it's never going to go very far unless you start getting into other rooms or other recordings, or just popping it in your ear and listening to a conversation like this, where it challenges the way that you think. It agitates. I love the word agitate. Challenge is cool, but agitate's like, man, just so much of it almost made me feel uncomfortable. Like challenge, cool, but like agitate's like, maybe I don't agree with you. And I'm telling you that like, cool, like it's good, but like, that's not what you're made for, Matt Kuehlhorn, right? Or whatever. And so, and sometimes that comes in direct form. Like I'm talking to Matt and I'm giving him direct advice about who he ... right? Sometimes it comes in a format of I'm in a room and I hear two other people talking about an experience. And I'm like, ding, light bulb. Wow. His business has nothing to do with mine, but that just creatively took me to a space mentally where I now solved a problem that I have that has nothing to do with him at all. Or again, like this podcast, anything that I can do to listen to someone's either experience or situation, or just hopefully they've gotten some just fuel, some fire. I mean, we've been just like ripping here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how you listen to this and then not want to go just run through a wall. Like that's how I feel right now. I'm pitting out over here. I'm ready to go. You remember that from our podcast originally? I'm like, dude, I'm pitting. You're like, me too. Okay, so here's the deal, man. It's like I have got to put myself in a situation to think differently. Okay, well, we started with a book, but that goes with people. I got to get around Matt Kuehlhorn. I got to get around a Justin Beadle. I got to get around a Jeff Curran. I got to get around these guys, right? Or ladies.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the mastermind, the power of it. I also think there's some massive power in questions, and we can get the right question from another individual. Even it's like a mirror, Chaz. Even if you're having a conversation with Justin or like I'm observing that, and the questions, dialogue can immediately impact and transform my thinking.
Yeah.
In moments. It's super amazing. So, all right. We can keep running. I know this, no doubt. But for the sake of the listener, we're gonna let them go here. But first, I want to give the opportunity for folks to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
How do we find you? Where are you at?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm on all social media platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn, Chaz Wolfe. Those are probably the easiest on social, but you can just go to gatheringthekings.com. That's a pretty easy one there, or chazwolfe.com. And obviously I'm involved in several other businesses. I have a portfolio of businesses, and we from a high level are trying to connect with other high performers, some in the garage door space, some in the home service space, some in the not having to do with any of those space. I'm just trying to build business disciples wherever I go.
Yeah. And I would emphasize, for anybody listening, like, what attracted me to run with you, Chaz, is just this pursuit of mastery, like wanting to grow. And that's the commonality that everybody I've met that you've brought in to the network. Like, grateful not done is the saying that you've used, and I think it's super applicable. Like, to be grateful of where we're at, but as long as I keep waking up, I ain't done.
I ain't done. No way. No chance.
No chance. Beautiful. Yeah. So check out Gathering the Kings. Chaz runs an amazing podcast. It's also a mastermind, and 7-figure and up business owners come there and run, push each other, challenge, agitate. Great word.
That's right.
My final question for you, Chaz, is do you know what your book title is going to be yet?
Yeah, there's a couple. First one that I remember off the top of my head, because I just got done talking about it, is Work-Life Obsession. And work-life balance doesn't exist. The word balance is ridiculous, and I don't believe in it at all. What made me successful in my business was my obsession, and what's going to make me successful in my family and my legacy and my community and my church is going to be obsession. And I just got to figure out how to be obsessed with all of it. And it's the same thing that all entrepreneurs are dealing with. So don't feel bad if you are tipped on that scale one way or the other. But there's just so many other things, that we have that we can use our addictive and obsessive nature towards. But there's another one. I'm gonna write that said I interviewed $1 billion, and this is what it told me.
Awesome.
I've had over 325 podcasts with multi millionaires and lots of money coming through that show. And I want to talk about the success principles that I've interviewed for the last 300 plus episodes.
Yeah, my friend, it's a true honor. You do inspire me. It's an honor to run with you, to agitate, to push you. And I'm so appreciative. We're going to include all your links in our show notes so the listener can reach out to you. I highly, highly encourage that. And man, until the next time we get together, man, I'm so psyched. Thank you so much.
Matt, it was an absolute pleasure. I can't speak highly enough in response, and this is not just frou for the show here, but when you talk about questions, and people listening to the show already know this, that's why they listen, but you're an intentional individual. You ask incredible questions. Anybody who's going to run in your circle is going to be better off than they started. So the feelings are well reciprocated both ways.
Appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. We count on your subscriptions, your likes, your shares, and I encourage you to do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, lower right-hand button. If you're on audio, download this, share it, and we look forward to having you on the next one.